stories. Health Minister says no plans to source second batch of Pfizer vaccines right now. Venezuela's opposition coalition ends regional elections boycott. And U.S. Supreme Court refuses to block Texas abortion ban. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Thursday, September 2nd, 2021. I'm your presenter, Shanique Harvey. Nationally, Minister of Health Honorable Akila Byron-Nisbet said the Federation will not be receiving a second batch of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines as yet due to concerns of excess doses that may expire if the existing stock is not used up. In an interview with ZIZ News at the official rollout of the Pfizer vaccine on Wednesday, the Health Minister said the ministry is waiting to see how persons respond to the first batch of 11,700 doses that were donated by the U.S. government.
Well, we do not have an exact date yet. We are waiting to see how we get through this batch. The vaccines all have an expiration date, and so we wouldn't want to request another batch before we are ready for it and before we see that we're able to move through the vaccines in a timely manner so that we do not have vaccines on hand passing our expiration date. So once we see how the rollout go in this first 3 months that we have for this particular batch, then we would then indicate that we're ready to receive the next batch.
Minister of Health Honorable Akila Byron-Nisbet. Persons undertaking construction on their property are strongly encouraged to consult with the building board and other relevant authorities to ensure that the new structure can withstand the challenges posed by natural or man-made disasters. Speaking on Wednesday's edition of the program Working for You, Dr. Eric Brown, a member of the Environment Subcommittee of the National Disaster Management Committee, spoke about decisions that some builders are taking which may turn into a recipe for disaster in the future. One example included adding a basement to an existing structure.
The land has a slope, and once you disturb that slope, that terrain, by excavating especially, you have created a sort of a weak point. If we talk about geology, a sort of weak point. Now, when we have torrential rains, and that water soaks into that soil tends to move in the direction of the slope. And so therefore it exerts a pressure, especially a downhill pressure.
He also pointed out to a housing development on a hillside in Keon, where some persons opted to dig down into the hill contrary to the pattern used by existing structures. Brown warned that there is a potential for disaster based on the way some of the houses were constructed. He also advised the persons to ensure proper drainage is available and cleared regularly to avoid a buildup of water that can have a disastrous effect on the environment. The St. Kitts National Youth Parliament Association, or SCANIPA, will be hosting a number of events in September to commemorate its 20th anniversary. The events will be guided by the theme, 20 Years of Shaping Our Society, Forging Ahead with Justice and Equality. Public Relations Officer for SCANIPA, Malachi Ferguson, spoke of the significance of the theme.
Firstly, that theme is a part of our motto for the association, which is equality and justice in nation building. So it really means something for us. It's enshrined in our constitution. So that this theme for the 20th anniversary is most fitting.
He said the activities will start with an official virtual launch on Sunday.
Kick off this calendar of activities this Sunday, the 5th of September. We'll be doing our virtual launch, where our calendar of activities you would hear more about our calendar of activities in greater detail. Some activities we have planned are, of course, a youth parliament sitting. This year we're trying to do it a little differently. So our alumni would make up the opposition benches, and our current Scaniperians would make up the government. So this would be a very interesting debate, and I encourage everyone to tune in. Also, we have another debate, which is the inter-association debate, which would have different youth organizations debating against each other.
Citizen invited persons to check Sniper's Facebook page to view the calendar of events. Regionally, Venezuela's opposition is switching tactics after boycotting regional and local elections for the past 4 years. After months of internal disagreement, the main opposition coalition has agreed to field candidates in November. Al Jazeera's Lucia Newman reports.
Would they or wouldn't they? That was the question. That's finally been answered.
After a very conscious and deep analysis, we've decided to participate in this electoral process.
Regional elections to choose Venezuelan governors and mayors are scheduled for November 21st. The main opposition parties boycotted the last presidential elections in 2018 and the subsequent legislative elections, in which they lost control of the National Assembly. They argued that conditions for a fair, competitive, and transparent election didn't exist. In fact, they say they still have no guarantees. But the change of heart is proof that they no longer believe that continuing to bet on a self-proclaimed interim government led by opposition leader Juan Guaidó is feasible.
We are treading the path that we believe in, and will continue treading because we cannot continue living a fantasy.
President Nicolás Maduro congratulated the opposition, but could not resist taking a jab at Guaidó, who had favored boycotting the elections again.
I told my wife Celia to get some good popcorn because I'm going to sit in my armchair in front of the TV with my popcorn to see Juan Guaidó vote on November 21st. And there I will applaud because we managed to include him in democracy again, to include him in the constitution.
Maduro has good reason to celebrate. He hopes opposition participation in the elections will ease international pressure and help restore diplomatic recognition by many EU, Latin American, and North American countries. But participating in the elections also gives the opposition a chance to gain ground, especially while carrying out intense negotiations with the government to recover the independence of Venezuela's democratic institutions. Guaidó responded to Maduro, tweeting, "Get serious. We all know there are no guarantees of a free and fair election. That's exactly why you are sitting at a negotiating table with those of us who are demanding electoral and political guarantees and a timetable for future elections." Maduro is demanding that the United States and Great Britain remove stiff economic sanctions in exchange for progress being made in the internationally sponsored negotiations taking place in Mexico City. For that to happen, the government will have to be prepared to make concessions that until now have been unthinkable. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
And finally, in regional news, Brazil's Supreme Court on Wednesday heard arguments for and against a cutoff date for land claims that indigenous people say are vital for their survival, while the government advocated for legal certainty for farmers in the agricultural powerhouse. More in this Reuters report.
Brazil's highest court weighed arguments on Wednesday over a cutoff date for land claimed by indigenous people. This comes as far-right President Jair Bolsonaro advocates deforestation to expand farmland, saying too few indigenous people live on too much land. Wednesday's case rose to the Supreme Court in an appeal by the Xoklang people, who were driven from their land over a century ago. They've challenged what they call the state's overly narrow interpretation of indigenous rights and have protested outside courts as they wait for a decision. The government argued that Native communities can only claim land occupied by their people in 1988, when Brazil's constitution was ratified. A lawyer representing the largest indigenous organization, APIB, Luiz Eloy Amado of the Terena people, said the constitution does not lay out a time frame for ancestral land guarantees. Amado said, quote, "The land question is fundamental for Brazil's indigenous people." Amado added some 800 claims would be stalled if the 1988 deadline is accepted by the court. The case is expected to drag on for days. The court adjourned until Thursday, when 18 speakers are expected to discuss the issue before the justices.
Internationally, the U.S. Supreme Court has refused to block a law banning abortion after 6 weeks in Texas, making it the state with the most restrictive abortion laws in the country. The judges voted 5-4 on Thursday, blocking all appeals that stopped the law being enforced. Al Jazeera's Andy Gallagher reports.
On Wednesday, the so-called fetal heartbeat bill of Texas became law, making it one of the strictest abortion measures in the U.S. This is now the only state banning abortions after a heartbeat has been detected at around 6 weeks, before many women even realize they're pregnant. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed the bill in May with the expectation of legal challenges.
They worked together on a bipartisan basis to pass a bill that I'm about to sign that ensures that the life of every unborn child who has a heartbeat will be saved from the ravages of abortion.
By midnight on Tuesday, clinics across the state were turning women away who are more than 6 weeks pregnant.
We're having really difficult conversations where patients are filled with anguish and worry and fear as they try to figure out what's next for them.
Women's health groups say it amounts to a total ban on abortion. But the new law also empowers ordinary citizens to sue abortion providers and those who help women get the procedure.
We think that we could see lawsuits against a huge range of people, including frontline workers at health centers, including counselors who provide genetic counseling to someone about their pregnancy and ultimately refer them for an abortion if that's what the patient wants.
Several other states, mostly in the conservative South, have tried passing similar abortion restrictions with mixed success. Pro-abortion rights groups say the legal push may be leading up to a direct challenge to the 1973 landmark Roe v. Wade federal ruling that gave women the right to seek an abortion. The state of Mississippi is now directly challenging that constitutional right, and with a more conservative-leaning Supreme Court, it may be the biggest test in decades.
We certainly have reason to fear what the Supreme Court will do with this direct challenge to Roe. And what's happening today and going forward in Texas is deeply alarming because they may have found a blueprint for rolling back abortion access, regardless of what the Supreme Court decides with the Jackson Women's Health case.
Access to abortions has long been a divisive and deeply political issue in the US, but momentum seems to be gathering pace to challenge the choice of women across this nation. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera.
Weather is partly cloudy skies with a gentle breeze of 8 miles per hour from the east-northeast. Seas are not exceeding 1.5 meters or 5 feet. Weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis today will be partly cloudy with a 30% or low chance of showers. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a 40% or moderate chance of showers mainly after midnight. Sunset today will be at 6:22 p.m. and sunrise tomorrow at 5:57 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your presenter, Shanique Harvey.